Hi, welcome to Deep Dive with Colin. This is our inaugural shoot, and today we are going to talk about the difference between a short-bodied and a long-bodied ink. What is a short-bodied, long-bodied ink, and what are the differences that you're going to see when you're pulling a squeegee, and how do you work with them? First off, I want to talk about the different types of short-bodied inks. FN White is a short-bodied ink, as are inks from QCM and Rutland. If you are to stir them, you're typically going to see a very short-bodied, kind of like mayonnaise effect, and it's going to stay pretty much where you put it. Where a longer-bodied ink is, you're going to more commonly call it an ink that looks like it's running. You put it on a scoop and it runs more like honey. So we're going to open up these containers. These are fresh off of the shelf, and we're going to go through them, and we're just going to describe what we see. So I'm going to pull the plastic off of these. We have Wilflex Bolt White and Wilflex Bright Tiger, Amazing Bright Tiger. I'm going to open up the FN, and we're going to see what that looks like. As we take a spatula and we scoop it in, you can see that a short-bodied ink cuts very easily. As you lift it out, it separates itself from the ink, much like mayonnaise does, or if you're old school and a fan of Joe Clark, it cuts like cold cream. So even if we were to stir that ink up quite a bit, get it warm, we're in the low 70s here in this room right now, so the ink is going to be very similar. You're going to see that it cuts very cleanly. Now, while this does great things for printing, for doing things like printing a high detail ink, printing halftones, creating very sharp, very clean edges on your print, it does have some potential drawbacks depending on what your expectations are. So let's open up the Wilflex, this one, the Bright Tiger. That is our Amazing Bright Tiger White. Bright Tiger White happens to be a standard cure ink. So let's see here, as I scoop into it and pull that out, you can see that it's definitely has more length to it. Now, from a historical context, Wilflex has actually been adjusting a lot of their formulas lately so that the inks are not as historically long-bodied and behave a lot like the thick honey of old. But there you can see that ink will have more of a length to it. And that type of ink, when you put it on press, tends to puddle or pool when you're printing, where short-bodied ink will, again, stay where you put it. Get this clean. Let's open up the Bolt White. Again, make sure I'm looking at the right product. Yep, Bolt White, Bow Cure. This is what it looks like in the can. So I cut it and lift it. Bolt White is a little more short-bodied. Again, this is part of that evolution of white inks. Get that stirred up. Another thing with those longer-bodied inks is that they're very thixotropic, meaning that they need the stirring, the agitation, to get it loose, and it also wants heat. It performs really well above 80 degrees, meaning if your environment is 80 degrees or when you're on press, the ink is above 80, and typically it's above 90. This will end up flowing really nicely. And as a result, when that ink is in the screen, it'll end up staying down, does that puddle, that pooling. We talk about how these inks are long-bodied or short-bodied. Where it's really going to impact us as screen printers is when we get that ink on screen, and whether it's on an auto or on a manual, that squeegee pull. A short-bodied ink, when we have a screen, I'm going to take a little dab here, put this here on this side. That's another thing. When it comes to ink coming off of your spat and going down the side, short-bodied inks are typically a heck of a lot easier to clean up. as evidenced by this. So much of that ink comes right off the spat. Set this to the side, and I'm going to try and give a quick little demonstration. Short-bodied inks tend to stay on the squeegee, and depending on the ink itself, what you can see is a big mass of ink staying built up on the side of the squeegee here. If that short-bodied ink that you have is a bit thicker, not a soft, droopy short-bodied ink, it ends up staying on that squeegee a lot more. Where, to turn this around, we're going to pull out, I want to use the bolt. The bolt white, I'm going to spread that here a little bit more. And as I pull that squeegee across, that bolt white, the longer bodied ink, until it's at production temperature, that's typically 80, 90 degrees, it does not perform as quickly as a short-bodied ink does. So it needs to get up to temperature. So as this prints, the short-bodied ink shears where the long-bodied ink, until it's warm and ready, could be a bit thicker and a bit more difficult to print. So as we can see, a short-bodied ink is very easy to start printing with. We don't need to be at higher temperatures in order to get the ink to perform the way that we want. Short-bodied, the ink can move around, shear, clear, do everything that we need it to. Depending on how thick your short-bodied ink is, there's everything from those softer, slumping white inks, kind of difficult to show here. Those ones, even though they're short-bodied, will come off of that squeegee a little bit more. The thicker that is, historically, like the QCM 158 was a squeegee climber. On occasion, you're going to see short-bodied inks from other companies that just stick to the squeegee and they don't come down. You need to use a little bit of curable reducer to get that ink to come down and kind of relax and chill on the screen a little bit, where a long-bodied ink is going to be a bit more viscous and it's going to be more challenging to actually move around on the screen until it gets hot enough so that it flows properly. Think of honey as a great example. The colder the honey is, the harder it is to move it around. As it warms up, it pours out of the container, no problem. And we're talking natural honey, not fake honey. So as this ink, as the Wilflex inks warms up, it's going to come down off of that squeegee a lot easier than it did when it was colder, where the short-bodied inks are going to still perform great and they're going to relax their characteristics a little more. Now, whereas one ink preferred over another completely depends on what you and your shop wants to do. I personally find that a short-bodied ink allows me to hold greater detail. It allows me to print very sharp, clean edges. If I'm doing a high LPI print, a white base, 55, 60, 65 line halftone, a short-bodied ink is going to, that droplet of ink, that column of ink that comes through your screen, is going to drop a lot easier. It's going to clear the screen and it's going to maintain its shape better than a longer bodied ink typically does. For that long bodied ink to look as good as a short bodied ink, you do need to make sure that your platen temperatures are higher and that you are adjusting your print pressure and speed and your squeegee selection a little bit more. Short bodied inks give you a little more leeway in getting a nice clean print. Thanks for watching our first episode. As always, we have tons of education available to you on our Ryonet channel on YouTube, and we have lots and lots of blogs you can peruse. If you have any suggestions for a deep dive question that you would like to have answered, please leave a comment below, and we also have a link to the form submission right below as well. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.